We get these poll numbers, and a lot of them are fake polls. I call them fake polls. And come to think of it, who gets attacked more than me? Ben, does anybody get attacked? I get attacked. I get attacked. I think maybe more. Maybe more than anybody. I don't know. I can do the greatest thing for our country, and on the networks and on different things, it will show bad. They will take it back because fake news. They said, America first. That could be racist. I said, racist? Racist. Why is that racist? Here we are. I think, does everybody in this room agree? You're living in America. America first, right? We're here. Racist.
It was quite a sight in the White House earlier today. The president delivering remarks at the Young Black Leadership Summit in what sounded to the ear more like a MAGA rally than an East Room gathering. The crowd at times chanting USA, build the wall, lock them up, and fake news. Joining the conversation, Peter Baker, New York Times chief White House correspondent, AB, Jason, the Rev, and Jonathan are all still here. Peter Baker, you have covered, and I have worked many events in the East Room. The East Room is where President John F. Kennedy's body lay in repose, along with the bodies of, I believe, 6 other American presidents after they died. I have never seen it house a crowd chanting fake news, chanting CNN sucks. I wonder if there's a string to be drawn between the political discourse and the conduct of groups that go to the White House.
Well, every president, as you know, tries to draw at least some distinction between a political event and a policy event or a White House event, a presidential event. In theory, you're not supposed to use the White House as a prop for a campaign, although in some ways, obviously, it's unavoidable. But the appearance of this particular event made it look like, as you said, another rally before the midterm elections, and at a time when the country is clearly rattled, at a time when clearly some people in the country are rattled by these pipe bombs. Rather than give reassurance, rather than, preach a different kind of message, he read the script earlier that he was given, said the things that a president's supposed to say, and then moved on back to the normal, divisive kind of rhetoric that he prefers. He's not somebody who wants to be a unifier. It's not his political approach. It's not his style. It's not what got him to where he is today. And he resents the people who have been criticizing. He resents CNN. He resents MSNBC. He resents the critics in the press and on the left who have said that he's responsible for this atmosphere that might have, encouraged this kind of action.
Jason Johnson, I'm not someone who has become numb to any of this. I'm shocked and rattled by all of it. But one of the most jarring things I've seen, having worked in that building every single day for 6.5 years, was to hear the chants in this room that is so sacred. I think wars have been ended in that room. And to hear it sound like a MAGA rally on the day that a Trump-aligned suspect, someone suspected of orchestrating a serial bombing campaign to mete out domestic terror to Donald Trump's political rivals, was beyond jarring.
Nicole, I'm like you. I won't allow myself to get numb to the way that this president basically bespoils everything in the room. But I'm going to speak at an even sort of deeper level about what was going on there. So this is a young black Republican group. Turning Point USA happens to be there. One, I want to point out, and this is a testament to sort of overall authoritarianism and violence this president encourages. One, they blocked all black press from being able to come to the event. I know several reporters. We were initially given passes to go to this event, and then they took them back because they didn't want anyone there who might possibly see the kind of violence that this president was encouraging. Furthermore, it is absolutely disgusting that in the wake of political opponents and people who are helping him to do his job, other people who supposedly care about America being threatened by life or death bombs, that he's concerned about attacks on himself. This president is a narcissist. We know these things. This president is a terrorist sympathizer. We know these things. But more importantly, he is encouraging a generation of incredibly foolish young people foolish young people. And I want this to be clear. This isn't about Republicans or Democrats. This is about the Trump personality cult. We know Republicans. I know Robert Trainum. I know Michael Steele. We all know African-American Republicans. These are lost, disturbed, self-loathing people who are part of a personality cult for a president who calls for domestic terrorism and a destruction of every norm that makes this country great. And any opportunity he has to speak is an opportunity for us to be reminded of what an actual danger he is to everything we hold dear in this country.
Rev?
Every time we say that you cannot go lower than what Donald Trump has done, he proves us wrong. This was among the lowest things that he could ever do. To go in the East Room, which is sacred, have a staged rally. Notice that all of those youngsters had caps on. It was almost like we're going to dress you for the photo. And to call it a Young Black Leaders Summit, he raves about the violence in Chicago, which he should. Why weren't they discussing that? Why weren't they discussing student loans? Why weren't they discussing issues of young blacks? They just had Kanye in there at least talking about criminal justice. None of that. They're in there talking about CNN sucks. They're in there talking about build a wall. So why do you need a Young Black Summit to do it? Because it was not a summit. It was a Make America Great rally. They used some young blacks as props, which really is an insult to them. There are black Republicans that have some dignity and have some issues they want to discuss. There's nothing wrong with those young blacks wanting to be Republican, but it is something wrong with them being used as props so that he can take his shots against the media on a day that we watch CNN and others have to deal with bomb squads out in front of their door.
I want to ask you, Jonathan Lemire, about the White House staff. Does anyone try to coach the president? We know what his instincts are, and you've spoken to that. They're what we see laid bare at rallies and in his 2 a.m. tweets. What does the White House think or say or do in defense of this conduct? Obviously, when you work on the White House staff, you have an opportunity to shape the conduct or the public events. There's a lot of stagecraft. Just pull back the curtain. I staged a lot of these events. They're exactly as Peter Baker described them. They're as you described them. Sometimes the people are props. They're there to small business events are the best. Right. You go and find small business owners from battleground states, and you bring them in and you talk about giving loans. I mean, it happens all the time. Every White House does it. But like all things with this president, they seem to debase what is a pretty cookie cutter process, bringing in a group and trying to make a point that advances your legislative or political agenda. What goes on at the staff level when a group of young supporters, I guess, of the president starts chanting CNN sucks and the president's like a pig in you-know-what, reveling in it?
The White House aides that I talk to say consistently they feel like they can control the president to a point. They believe that, yes, they can feed him some remarks in a teleprompter and he will read them, sometimes begrudgingly, but he will do it. And we saw that today. But the decision, frankly, that it's just to have him deliver those remarks in that setting at all is striking. I think most presidents, perhaps, he would have gone to like the diplomatic room and read, this is the update on the shooting, and then an hour later you have this event, and again, young black Republicans, you want to do that, that's fine. But that he combined the two. So therefore, you had this sort of odd image when even he was doing the serious news, you had cheers from the crowd. And then beyond that, once he moved into the more political portion of the agenda.
And you know what you would do? You'd close it.
Yeah.
So here's what you'd do if you're press staff. You'd open up to the press the serious statement about the news of the day.
And then you go behind closed doors and meet supporters.
And then you'd say, you know what, we're going to close this event. It's important to touch these young people, but you close that off to press.
But instead, they left it open. He basked in the cheers. We did hear the CNN sucks chants. More than that, there was a couple of...
And he never reprimanded him. No. He never said, no.
My colleague in the room heard him talking about George Soros.
We just got the president on the South Lawn addressing some of this. Let's listen.
Law enforcement for having done an incredible job. The FBI, Secret Service, so many. I mean, they just got together and did a fantastic job, like finding a needle in a haystack. So I want to congratulate them. As you know, I think everybody wants to congratulate them. But they did a fantastic job. I'm going to North Carolina right now. It's raining, so if you don't mind, I'll step out of the rain. But we're very proud of law enforcement. I did not see my face on the van. I don't know. I heard he was a person that preferred me over others, but I did not see that.
Does that bother you at all?
No, not at all. No, I mean, not at all. No, that there's no blame. There's no anything. If you look at what happened to Steve Scalise, that was from a supporter of a different party. You look at what happened on numerous of these incidents, they were supporters of others. No, I'm just really proud of law enforcement. I think they did an incredible job. And I will see you in North Carolina. No, I don't think so. I think that we're running a great campaign. People love what we're doing. They love what we're saying. The Republicans had tremendous momentum. And then, of course, this happened where all that you people talked about was that, and rightfully so. It was a big thing, rightfully so. But now we have to start the momentum again. I think the Republicans have tremendous momentum when you think of Judge Kavanaugh, when you think of all the things that have happened. And hopefully we're going to go on to a great victory. We have a lot of Senate races where we're leading, races that, frankly, were going to be uncontested. It looks like we're leading a lot of those races. The House there are a lot of people in the House, so we're going to see how that goes. But I think we're doing very well in the House. If they wanted me to, but I think we'll probably pass. Thank you very much. Well, I think I've been toned down. You want to know the truth. I could really tone it up because, as you know, the media has been extremely unfair to me and to the Republican Party. I think the media has been very, very unfair in terms of the Republican Party and the way it's been covered. And they understand that. They write articles about that. Many of them admit that. But the media has been unbelievably unfair to Republicans, conservatives, and certainly to me. But with all of that being said, we're winning, so I like that. Thank you very much. Thank you.
I'm often rendered speechless these days. Peter Baker, I thought he was asked if he'd called the past presidents who received pipe bombs, and he said, I'll pass unless they want me to. Anything else stand out to you as we've been talking about all afternoon? Conduct so far outside the range of what we normally see from a president of a country in the throes of a domestic terror crisis.
Well, this is a president who feels grievance, right? He feels under attack himself. And what he doesn't seem to feel is any responsibility to help lead the country in a different path. As he said, he's not going to tone down. He might even tone up because he's been restrained, in effect, is what he's saying. He doesn't see any connection, and maybe there's not a direct connection. We should be careful to overstate things, but you do normally see in situations like this a president's kind of rise above partisanship, at least for a moment, to talk about the national, solidarity, national purpose, and that this should not be a situation of us versus them when violence is threatened against major public figures, particularly the ones who are identified as his adversaries. But that doesn't seem to be his method here. He doesn't offer any kind of reflection or thoughtfulness in terms of how he sees this in larger societal terms.
Kelly O'Donnell joins us from the White House. Kelly, he obviously is a well-known and I believe admitted consumer of voracious amounts of cable news. I'm going to go out on a limb here and guess he saw the criticism of not praising the FBI in his event with young black supporters earlier this afternoon, so he went and crossed that off his to-do list in this appearance and exchange with you guys. Anything else stand out to you?
Well, I was struck. There was light rain coming down, and he did stand there and take questions from us. And I did ask if he intended to call former President Obama or any others who had been targeted. And his response was, I've been asked to do so, but I think we'll pass. I also asked if there was something more he could do to change how he is engaging politically. And his answer went into the issue of more midterm politics, not really dealing with this. The first question that he seemed to catch with respect to the suspect being in the supporter group was he was asked if he had seen his own face on the van of the man who was taken into custody today. And you heard him say that no, he had not seen it. Now, that seems kind of surprising given how much coverage this has gotten today. But he wanted to make a very clear point that someone who supports him politically does not make him, the president, culpable for that man's actions. And of course, in the particulars, that's true. We were trying to get at, could the president do more, say more, change things in some way to affect how the political discourse is playing out? And he engaged a bit on that, said he thinks he has toned down but could tone up, and definitely is eager to get out and get back into campaign mode. So I think it'll be critical to watch how he conducts himself tonight, now that there has been an arrest and ongoing investigation happening. I thought about asking about had he contacted former President Obama today, or the others who are named in this, is because once there is an arrest, you could see that would be a reason to call, given the fact that they have not been in touch. So what used to be the normal sort of former president's club of shared communication at the time of big events, that apparently does not exist anymore, because this certainly would be a reason to place a phone call. Perhaps others at the Department of Justice or the FBI are reaching out to those who have been targeted, but the president was pretty clear that he's going to take a pass, in his words.
A.B. Stoddard, thank you, Kelly. If you could stick around with us to the top of the hour. A.B., it is a remarkable reminder from Kelly O'Donnell that minute to minute, the reporters covering this White House uncover the obliteration of new norms in a simple, he was standing, fielding some questions on his way in the rain to the helicopter, and there yet again, another extraordinary deviation from the normal practice. Not a law, not a requirement, but the practice, the habit of calling a former president. We haven't had that many, only 45. Who was targeted by an act of domestic terror this week.
Right, and that's what I expected him to say in Wisconsin the other night, was that he was stunned to hear that the lives of former presidents and their families could be threatened by this. And this was, just, again, the perfunctory script that he read from the teleprompter was nicely written by someone on his staff, but we expected more of a reference to this sort of wider threat that would include people who have served before him in that small group, exclusive group of people, and the seriousness which that threat represented, that it wasn't just sort of people at a rally being threatened or, like shot down at a concert in Las Vegas. This was a seriously dangerous situation, and at least that's what we were, led to believe all along. It was considered that way by law enforcement, and then indeed it was confirmed today that these were not hoax devices. And instead of coming out, he does do sort of a wink and a nod where he comes out and reads the scripts, but he lets his supporters know that this is just something he's, doing for a few minutes. And the idea that he would just turn to Kelly and say, I'm going to take a pass on calling former presidents who are under threat from pipe bombs is just extraordinary.
And it also, Jonathan Lemire, speaks to the weakness of the people around him. No one can make him do the easiest and most basic functions of the American presidency.
Right. Again, they can control him to a point.
And what point? And what do they control? I mean, he puts pants on every day. What else are they getting done?
Well, one place where they cannot control him is, of course, the rally stage. And that's where he's going tonight. That's where he's heading right now. He's off to North Carolina to do another one of these rallies. And
did they talk about canceling it?
No, none that I heard. There was no suggestion of canceling it. He had one the other day when the crisis was still very much unfolding. Now it seemed to be, come to a conclusion. I mean, there is, unless this individual had accomplices. So there was no consideration of that. And I think the president would have rejected it anyways, as he said in his tweet today. He wants to get back to campaigning. He feels, he knows we've got 10 days to the midterms. That's his priority, particularly in the Senate. I think there was a sense that you heard him say that. You read between the lines. Not much talk about the House. It's about keeping the Senate as that line of defense for him and what could come next after November.
And he's making, we don't have to dig around to try to figure out how he feels about his political fate. He's scared. He tweeted it, Rev.
Yeah, he tweeted it, and that's why he's focused on the Senate, because he knows if the House goes Democrat and there's impeachment proceedings, they have to convict him in the Senate. So he's focused on Donald Trump. But we keep saying this is not how presidents act. This is not how people act. It's a matter of common decency. Anybody would say the least he could have said is, to the question of whether he was going to call former President Obama, well, I haven't, but I want them to know of my concern. Nothing. There was no overture at all. any human being would say something because of the terror that their families are going through. It was sent to people's homes. And your FBI director said this was no hoax. He doesn't have that in him, and I hope the American people see that. You don't have to hand somebody a script to tell them to sympathize with people that have kids in the house and somebody just sent a pipe bomb to the house.
It's as good a place to stop as any. My thanks to Kelly, Jason, Peter, AB, the Rev L. Sharpton, and Jonathan. That does it for our hour. I'm Nicolle Wallace. MTP Daily starts right now. Hi, Chuck.